Hi, and thank you for joining me again today. I'm so grateful to have you here with me. And today we are going to deal with a deep dive into the subject of relationship. But before we do that, we're going to have a little recap of all of the concepts from Spontaneous Brilliance that we've kind of got working with us up till now, just to keep them fresh in our mind. So first, there is no shortage of brilliance on this planet, just a reluctance to offer it and a resistance to accepting it. And the metaphorical metaphysical guide to life is that all things that help to move us toward a successful performance on the stage do exactly the same thing when we apply them to the great stage of life. And life is a 24/7 improvisation. So in improv, as in life, it's all about offering, accepting, and not blocking. And we know that the universe never blocks. Nothing happens to us. Everything happens for us. Like all good actors on the stage, we are 100% response able to and for all of our choices, our thoughts, our beliefs, our responses, our actions. And we know that acting is active. It's not about what you feel, it's about what you do. Obstacles are what makes it all worth doing. It's about making the other player look good. And in acting as in life, it's all about finding the love. As I have said many, many times, the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. That is the wonderful quote from Mr. Joseph Campbell. And we're going to look at another aspect of being who we are, which is relationship. Not just in improvisation or in acting, but all through our life. Everything is about relationship. And on the stage, as in life, there are only 7 categories of relationship that you're ever engaged in. And so we're going to go through those in a deep dive one at a time. I listed them in the first episode of this podcast, but now we're going to dig in, okay? So number 1 is your relationship with yourself. I guess it should probably go without saying that this is the most important of all relationships. It's our first, it's obviously our longest, and it's our most constant. It's our most intimate. As we know from our discussion of uniting our two selves, we are always in a duality of the relationship between our egoic self, the character here on the great stage of life, and the player or our soulful self. Even as beautiful and wonderful and amazing as that relationship is, and we know it is, unfortunately, most of us live as though this is the least important relationship in our lives. We make everything else more important. We want to make our relationship with ourself and our care of that relationship subject to all the other relationships. But remember, and please never forget, you are pure source energy in human expression. You are that slice of creation that is living in, as, and through you. That's who you're having a relationship with when you're talking about your relationship with yourself. And we will come back to more about our relationship with ourselves. But let's look at the other forms of relationships, okay? It's very likely that when I brought up relationship as a subject, that the first thing that sprang to your mind was that I was referring to relationships with other people. And often we're really distracted and or overwhelmed by the attention that we place on our relationships with other people. We tend to put too much attention, if you will, on the role that the other people are playing in our relationships. Not to say that those relationships are not important. Of course they are. They're our primary training ground for the back and forth of offering and accepting, right? They are how we learn to find the love. They are how we learn to embrace the obstacles when we embrace our sacred friends, etc. But it is a rare human being, which I'm hoping we all are. It is a rare human being that recognizes that our relationship with every other human being is our responsibility. Okay, now don't panic. No heavy breathing out there. Okay, we are going to come back to that and deal with that in more detail. But just know that, like everything else, it's our response-ability. So the next category of relationship is our relationship with other living creatures. Now, human beings are not the only beings on the planet. They're a small part of a much bigger world filled with lots of unique living creatures. And they are always offering just as we are. It takes awareness and sensitivity for us to try to understand or interpret their offers or accept their offers as being just their natural way of being. But we are in a constant exchange of offering and accepting with every other living creature on the planet in ways large and small. When a dog reaches out for you, if it reaches its paw towards you and it's a pet, that's one thing. If it reaches its paw towards you and it's injured, that's another thing. If it lunges for you and it's growling, that's another thing. When a snake hisses, when a bee lands on your arm, all of these things are offers that we can choose to accept or block. And again, whether we believe it or not, the reality is that our relationship with these creatures is 100% our responsibility. Can you sense a theme here? Okay, here we go. We're going into our relationship with things. In these relationships, the thing itself, the object or the possession or the belonging, that is the offer, okay? Opinions may differ as to what constitutes an object or a thing rather than a living being. For instance, a tree may be a living being to some and an inanimate object to others. But regardless of our personal perspective, the fact still remains that if they are in this category, in our relationship to them, they themselves are the offer rather than making an offer. Our relationship, the back and forth between us and the object, us and the thing, is 100% a matter of our choices and therefore 100% our responsibility. We're at number 5 now. As human beings, we naturally seek community, and so we have a relationship with systems. Those communities evolve. Communities become systems, groups, institutions, and systems are made up for people, by people. Our relationships with those systems have many of the same qualities that our relationships have with other people. And much like our relationship with other people, our relationship with systems created by people are our responsibility, okay? Next is your relationship with your environment. Our relationship with the environment has to do with our physical surroundings, whether they are natural or man-made. Nature as a whole, the world in which we live, all of it. Our environment contains elements of other categories we discussed. For example, a man-made environment is going to be filled with objects, and a natural environment is going to be filled with a variety of living creatures. And our response to that and our acceptance of that environment as an offer is often affected by our feelings toward the other relationship types, and how that comes together is, you guessed it, it's our responsibility, folks. Okay. And the final one of these 7 types of relationships is your relationship with the universe. Again, I'll reiterate here that I use universe to be my respectful way of respecting whatever theological backgrounds or spiritual perspectives may be out there, belief systems. So when I say universe, you can substitute the God of your understanding, you can substitute source, you can substitute creation, whatever works for you is fine. But your relationship with the creator or the universe is a biggie. No matter what your perspective or what your belief system, this relationship, no matter what your perspective or what your belief system, this relationship dictates a lot of our ability to respond to or even to comprehend the other 6 types of relationships. Historically speaking, humans are a little prone to believe that all other relationships are indicative of our relationship with the universe. If things are going well in other relationships, with our environment, with society, with people, with creatures, then we are doing well with the universe and vice versa. But that belief in and of itself, and you can see this one coming, that's our responsibility. The universe, as we know, the universe never blocks. The universe is offering always. We might perceive it as a block, and we have an idea of what we want it to be. And so when we don't get what we think we want, then we think the universe is blocking what we should have. But the universe is just offering us what is needed in that circumstance, what we are truly in need of at that moment. The universe is never, ever blocking. The universe is always offering you opportunities, and it's always accepting unconditionally the offers that you make. And once we wrap our head around that, then we can release ourselves from the feeling of random possibility. Think of the universe as the most giving and forgiving, the most offering and the most accepting improv partner you could possibly have, the most generous partner you could ever have on the great stage of life, because it is. You might remember me saying at the top of this that it's a rare human being who realizes that their relationship with every other human being is their own responsibility. And we're kind of back to that now. We have 100% responsibility for everything in our life. Everything. I mentioned to you that we were going to go back to that first relationship, which is your relationship with yourself. And we've spent an entire episode on that previous to this, but we're going to dig into it in more ways here, because I can't put too fine a point on it, that the quality and clarity of our relationship with ourselves, our understanding of ourselves, and our willingness to own our own offers, own when we're blocking, own our own acceptances of things and over acceptances of things, that's all what creates this world and the way that we see it. It's what creates all our other relationships. It is whether or not we take personal responsibility, is how well we are willing to participate in this conscious and loving relationship with ourselves. Okay? So when I've asked you in the past to find the love, this is about finding the love for yourself and understanding that taking personal responsibility for all of your offers and for all of your blocks is the way that you pull yourself into a conscious and loving relationship with yourself, and therefore a more conscious and loving relationship with every other type of relationship that you can have. And one of the ways that we do that is being conscious of status interactions. When I was studying at the National Theatre of Great Britain in the 1980s, I was introduced to the concept of status interactions, which again come from the great, wise, and wonderful Keith Johnstone, a great guru of improvisation technique. And status interactions are about four things. You can raise your own status, lower your own status, raise the other's status, and lower the other's status, whether the other is a person or not. Everything in your relationship that you do, just like everything is either offering or accepting or blocking, everything in relationship is doing one of those four things as well. We're responding to our perceptions and our feelings about status all the time. Status on the stage is the purview of the audience. So status on the stage is subject to the way that the audience sees one character in relationship to another, or the environment that the character's in relationship to the character and how they interact with it. But status in life is a matter of perception. It's a matter of our perception. And it's a matter of the positive or negative feelings that we have about ourselves and about others in relationships. And it's also about everyone else's feelings about those status. But our status triggers our behavior, both positive and negative. And when you think of a person who is high status, a lot of times we think of a person who just has a high status position, like a king. So if somebody is a ruler, then we think of them as having high status, because we think of status in terms of a lot of times socioeconomic kinds of thoughts about status. But in our way of looking at status, it is about our status relative to the other in the relationship. Okay? So if it's a king or a president or a queen or an empress that is doddering, or that is evil, or that is unkind, or that is not too intelligent, or that is very disregarding of other human beings, they might start to have a very low status in their relationships. An example being, say, Louis XVI. His birthright role was not accepted by those around him, as you could tell from the French Revolution. And so high status people might be somebody like, say, for instance, Mother Teresa. She had no conventional social standing, right? She had no home. She had no possessions. She had no money. Most of the things that people give value to were not, those exterior value judgment things were not part of Mother Teresa's life. And yet, due to her compassion, she had a status, and she still has a status, even though she's no longer living, that is higher than a lot of people on the planet. So when actors start working with status on the stage, there are some preconceived notions that often come into it, and they are true in life too. We often think of high status as good and low status as bad, or potentially vice versa. Like there are stereotypical perceptions of high status people being bossy or pushy or arrogant, and low status people being weak or needy. And we might have preconceptions that are the converse. Like we might think that high status people are super smart and benevolent and confident, and that someone of low status might be gentle and quiet and humble. Status, we have to remember, is relative. The status of a character is circumstantial. Someone who's humble, someone who's quiet, someone who's gentle can be a high status person, right? Like Mother Teresa. Status goes up and down relative to other people or the people that are perceiving it. And all the time, we are perceiving what we think our status is. And so in this case, in life, we are the audience. There's nobody watching us through that fourth wall. We are the audience. You'd think that in terms of status, our relationship with ourself would be fairly straightforward, but it's actually kind of a multi-layered status interaction. I mean, there is the way that we perceive or feel about or interact with our conscious self that we intentionally show the world, our unconscious self that shows up anyway, the soul, our physical body, our ego, or protective personality, as we have called it. We may feel worthy or powerful or trustworthy, or we may feel unreliable or incapable. And each of these feelings will affect the way that we treat ourselves and the way we present ourselves to others. And most people have a default or a habitual status. Most of us have a way that we are used to playing on the great stage of life. We either play high status habitually or we play low status habitually. Most people tend to be unaware of their default status. And so one of the things that we want to do in developing a conscious and loving relationship with ourselves is to notice where our default is and be willing to learn to let those status fluctuations that are healthy actually happen without fear, causing us to block the natural flow of up and down. So once we learn about status interactions, the goal is to become fluid and comfortable at either end of the spectrum and everywhere in between. When we can recognize that we might play low status because that's the way we feel most safe or unobtrusive or inoffensive or gentle or kind, then we can notice that that's not always the best way to show up in a situation is unobtrusive, right? Because we might be leaving our offers unoffered. We might be hiding in plain sight because we habitually play low status. Or we might habitually play high status. We might habitually feel helpful and strong and safe and powerful. And if we are playing high status habitually, that might be a way of blocking any perceived challenges, right? And just not dealing with them or not regarding them. Status habits can be tricky. They can be tricky to change. So what I'm asking you to do now and going forward is to notice. Notice how you come into a situation and notice if you are allowing the other to have a status change, particularly when we're talking about other human beings who are offering intentionally, because it's important to remember that only human beings block on purpose. If an animal blocks you, it's just doing what it instinctively does. It is not consciously going through a thought process of thinking that it's going to interrupt your workday flow or make you worse at your job by jumping on your lap in the middle of something that you're typing or whatever. It's just pursuing its need at the moment. Might be showing you tons of love at that moment. It's not trying to block you, even though that might be what happens, that where you were headed with your offers into your life at that moment might have hit an obstacle. It's not a block, okay? Human beings are the only creatures that block on purpose. And so that also means that we are the only creatures, if you will, that block ourselves on purpose. So notice if your status assumptions are causing you to either block yourself because you feel unsafe or you feel unworthy, or to block others because you feel like they are maybe dangerous, or maybe they're just intimidating, or maybe they scare you for some reason, but maybe the reason is that you're bringing that fear in with you. So you've sort of pre-blocked. Because we have talked before about presets and the effect that presets can have on you. And when we are blocking ourselves, we are often responding to a preset. This is true when we're blocking other people too. So there are preconceived notions that are one kind of our presets that cause pre-blocking, right? We're blocking based on the past. We're offering unconsciously. We're not in the present moment. We're not accepting. We are just already preloaded with a block is what we consider our offer, with a preconceived notion. And expectations are pre-blocking. But they're pre-blocking not based on the past like a preconceived notion is, not based on something that's already happened. But expectation is pre-blocking based on our desired future or our feared future. And again, we're offering unconsciously, we're not accepting, and we're not in the present moment. Judgment is another way that we block. It's another form of preset. And that feels like justified blocking. Okay? Because we're comparing the value of this present moment or this offer to the expectation or the preconceived notion or the way that we are feeling in this moment. And we're forgetting that everything is happening for us. Everything. So our judgment about something shuts us down. If we judge something to be unworthy, or we judge something to be broken or worthless or pointless or whatever, then we are not offering into that moment. And we are immediately diminishing not only the status of whatever the other is, the other person, etc., but we are lowering their status, but we're also potentially lowering ours. Because we might very well be judging our own offer. And limiting beliefs are the fourth kind of preset, and they are scripted blocking. They are blocking based on learned, ingrained perspectives, a habit of mind. They're a belief, so they're a habit of mind. We've talked about that before. Beliefs are habits of mind. So a habit of belief kills our faith, right? And so it causes us not to take action, not to make an offer. And so if we become aware of our ways of blocking, that we block through preconceived notions, we block through expectations, we block through judgments, we block through limiting beliefs, we can start to recognize how we are blocking, and we can be aware of that. We can get into a conscious and loving relationship with ourselves and with everything around us by noticing, just noticing, and being willing to accept responsibility, the ability to respond differently in this moment. I'm going to talk about a couple of other ways that we block. We block through procrastination. Procrastination is passive blocking. That's ignoring your soul. That's like going, yeah, I know I've probably want to do this, but I'm going to do something else. We're ignoring the value of the present moment. We're ignoring the value of the offer you're making to yourself. A lot of times we procrastinate, not because we don't want to do the thing, but because we're a little afraid of what's on the other side of doing it, right? So I meet people all the time in my clients and people that come to me for coaching or consulting, and they procrastinate even when they really, really, really want to get to something. They really want to start a business or transform their life in some way, and yet they procrastinate every single day. And to me, that's like just a free pass we give ourselves to kind of block and pretend like we don't notice that we're doing it. But believe me, some part of you knows, in that anxiety part of you, that you are actively ignoring the calling that you have to bring that beautiful creation, whatever it is, the thing your soul's trying to get you to write or create or build or do or be, and you're ignoring it. And frustration is what comes from that stubborn blocking, right? When we are constantly blocking, when we are constantly in avoidance, then we're ignoring our soul again. We're ignoring the value of the gift that is the obstacle, when we're frustrated because we're bumping up against an obstacle and we say, oh, well, that's a sign the universe doesn't want me to do this. And so we give up. That's ignoring the lesson that you're trying to teach yourself. Remember, you're in a conscious relationship with yourself. And when I say you're trying to teach yourself, I mean your soul's trying to teach the egoic you that's here. And so if you remember that cycle is always going on, when something is presented, it's not that it was slammed at you by some random force in the universe. It's that you invited it. Your soulful self invited this into your life. So what is it here? If you're frustrated, you're ignoring the lesson that you're trying to teach yourself. If you're frustrated, you're blocking, okay? Just like being bored is a sign of blocking. I once had a young student, and I was teaching a class on creativity, believe it or not, and at a charter school, and I was kind of foisted on these young students. They were 7th and 8th graders, and they had this class that they didn't know what they'd signed up for, and it was a class that was on creativity. So I had them doing all kinds of imagination exercises and improv exercises and all different kinds of things that they were doing, and they were way out of their comfort zone most of the time. And there was this one little guy, and his name was Sam, or I call him Sam, and he was just the coolest kid. And he was definitely visibly not enjoying the potential for looking not cool in some of these exercises. So one day we had just finished an exercise and we were all sitting around on the floor in this room, and there were about 20 kids in the room, and I was asking each of them what they had experienced in this exercise that we had just done. And Sam was clearly fidgeting a little bit. You know, he was used to being cool, and he was used to being so put together, and he was used to having it all going on. And he knew that sooner or later this was going to get to him, and he was going to have to talk about his feelings or something, and that was not going to be comfy. So all of a sudden in the middle of this, he just throws back his head and leans back on his hands and goes, "Ugh, I'm so bored." And I immediately turned to this little kid and went, "Honey, if you're bored, that's your soul calling you out. Make an offer. Don't ever be bored in your life. Make an offer. If you are bored, that's on you. You have a responsibility in your life to never be bored." And so I'm going to share with all of you what I shared with Sam and say the same thing to you. If you are ever bored, you are intentionally blocking the beauty that you could be experiencing in that moment. So offer, right? Don't ever be bored. Don't ever be bored. So in this conscious and loving relationship with yourself and conscious and loving relationship with all that is, it's important to remember that healthy relationships have fluid status interactions. No one player in any exchange is stuck in one status or another. Both parties are comfortable being high or low status, and that means within yourself. And that means within every interaction that you have with every other human being on the planet. For instance, in a marriage that's healthy, neither partner has to always be in a high status position. They don't have to always be right or always be in control or always know what the answer is. It's safe for them to also take a low status position when they need to do it without feeling less than their partner. They can be vulnerable without fear. Those are healthy status positions. Think of status interaction like a teeter-totter, like a seesaw, that one side has to be down for the other side to be up. And trading positions takes a little effort, but the most effort is expended when the two sides are in complete balance, okay? So remember how it used to be on the playground when you were young and you'd work to get that teeter-totter to like balance and both people be hovering at the same space? That takes attention, and it takes working together. And it takes being willing to trust that the other person is not going to, remember how there used to be those bullies on the playground or smart alecks on the playground that would just jump off the other side before you were ready, and then it would smack the person into the ground. So you do not want to ever forget to be attentive to where your status is in relationship to both your own interactions with yourself and your interactions with whatever and whoever the other is. So how do we do this? How do we do this just on a daily basis? Just always remember that you have 100% responsibility, and that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. That puts you in control. That puts you in control of every relationship you will have with any person, place, circumstance, collective, or thing that you will ever have on the planet. They're all up to you because you control the way that you perceive your status in relationship to them. You control what you're offering, you control what you're accepting, and you control what you're blocking. Just don't ever believe, please, 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 always remember and never forget that if you are frustrated, if you are bored, if you are feeling less than, you're probably blocking. Okay? So let it be part of your daily practice that you offer, part of your daily practice that you find ways to raise your own status in your relationship with yourself. And part of the way that we can do that is with rituals. Part of what we can do is start to build practices and daily rituals for ourselves that honor ourselves. Self-care is a way of raising your status for yourself in that conscious and loving relationship with yourself. And another way to raise your status and to offer into your own life is pick 5 courageous things that you're going to do every day. 5 courageous things that you're going to step out in the world and do. Write them down the night before and then do those 5 courageous things that day. You can pull this all together by having faith in yourself, finding ways through offering, through gratitude, through knowing your purpose, through finding the love, to raise your own status, to be in a conscious and loving relationship with yourself, with your soulful self and your egoic self. This physical body that is here is the character your soul came here to play. Are you playing? Are you playing? Are you playing at this every day? Well, I'm going to invite you to play in that conscious and loving relationship with all that is, and most particularly with yourself. Please always remember and never forget, accept every offer. When in doubt, offer. And if in doubt, you are probably blocking. All right, my loves. Thank you for being here again. I'll see you soon. The Spontaneous Brilliance podcast is brought to you by Miracle Communications Group. Our producer is Michelle Oneida. Sound engineer is Corey Michaels at Corey Michaels Productions. Music is composed by Rex Miller. And I'm your host, Sandra Kavanaugh. You can learn more about me and all things Spontaneous Brilliance at sandrakavanaugh.com or spontaneousbrilliance.com. And please join the conversation here at the Spontaneous Brilliance Podcast by emailing us at podcast@spontaneousbrilliance.com. And have a beautiful, glorious, blessing-filled day.